Welcome back to No Sleep Teal here on Reier on YouTube. Travis Reier with you following day one of 2024 training camp for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Doug Peterson and his team back on the grass in downtown Duval earlier today was able to take in the workout. Going to have some observations and some thoughts. Pretty busy Wednesday because you had Doug Peterson addressing the media before the practice. You had Trevor Lawrence talking with reporters afterward. We'll get into all of that. We'll have an extended version of NST coming up in the next day or so as Evan Reier will rejoin the show, but felt it would be a pretty good time to get on here and talk about some of the questions that we've had for this team going into the preseason. And again, whether it was Mitch Morse, whether it was Gabe Davis, whether it was via the draft with Brian Thomas Jr., a lot of intrigue on the offensive side of the ball. Probably just as much, though, on the defensive side because you bring in Arik Armstead from the San Francisco 49ers. You undergo some serious change on the back end of that defense. So, really on both sides of the ball. And you could even look at special teams because Cam Little, you take him in the sixth round of the 2024 NFL draft as a place kicker. It's a pretty serious investment into a kicker. You add Keelan Robinson, perhaps, to help you out in the return game from the University of Texas. Really, all three phases we could get into, but we'll probably stick more with offense and defense for now. Give ourselves some room to work. Still got a lot of time to work through this preseason. And in keeping in mind, Wednesday was day one, and Wednesday was shorts and helmets, not full pad work, just running around out there in shorts and helmets. And still, though, some intrigue and some interesting things to get into with you. And where we'll start is just with the health of this team. And so good to see guys like Trevor Lawrence looking really healthy out there, guys like Christian Kirk looking really healthy out there. Tyson Campbell recently extended and wallet fattened, I guess you could say. Tyson Campbell at the cornerback position looking really good out there. Now, Arik Armstead, again, working off to the side. You expected that. He had been designated PUP, so you didn't expect to see number 91 out there in the mix. And that was the case. And it's probably going to be a little bit before that does come to fruition. But some depth, you drafted a couple of defensive linemen in this most recent selection process. So a guy like Mason Smith, we saw out there working from a depth perspective with the defensive line on Wednesday. But Darnell Savage, one of those offseason acquisitions, working in a red jersey, but he was working with that secondary nonetheless, lining up at that slot corner position initially to go along with some other pieces that we'll outline for you here in just a little bit. And by the way, we even have a little video we'll get to here in just a minute as well that we were able to capture from the practice. But you start out with these practices and it's a lot of individual drills. Then you start bringing together a couple of positions like, say, quarterback and running back, as we'll see right here. The Jaguar quarterbacks, all three of them. That's right. CJ Beathard, Trevor Lawrence, and of course, Mac Jones coming in the offseason. There you see Etienne taking a handoff from Trevor, CJ Beathard up next. Really hoping for some bigger things from Tank Bigsby in year two. Mac Jones steps in, and you think about the depth of the running back position for this team, and there's some things to like there as well. Dearness Jones has a little juice to him, doesn't he? We've seen flashes of that to this point, but I just wanted to share some of that video with you as the quarterbacks and running backs do their thing on Wednesday morning. But you also wanted to know a little bit more maybe about that offensive line as well. And so when the first five lined up on Wednesday, it was uh, you had Harrison at right tackle, you had Scherf at right guard, you had Morse at center, you had Cleveland at left guard, and you had Cam Robinson at the left tackle position. And also, as far as say tight end depth, Evan Ingram is technically your starting tight end. But when you look at Evan, say in a shorts and helmets practice down there with some of the wide receivers, he pretty much looks a lot like a wide receiver. So you need a Luke Farrell to step forward. You need a Brenton Strange to step forward. And we saw a lot of both those guys, a couple of draft picks here in recent years at the tight end position. And, working through that offense in terms of depth, you need an extra interior guy or two. You need a swing guy that can play some tackle if needed. And we saw Cooper Hodges with that second OL on Wednesday at the right guard position. Luke Fortner, previously the starter at center before the arrival of Morse, was with the twos at center, and Walker Little, as you would expect, also right there behind Cam Robinson at the left tackle position. And quarterback depth is going to be interesting to watch beyond Trevor Lawrence. It's being presented as a competition of CJ Beathard and Mac Jones. But if you go to the extent to bring Mac in here after the events of the second half of last season, that tells me that Mac Jones is in all likelihood going to be your two, because Mac, even with his struggles in New England last season, I think we can all agree at this point in their respective careers, after what we saw from CJ Beathard in the wake of the injuries to Trevor, and as much of what we didn't see from CJ Beathard. Because even with Trevor hobbled and dealing with multiple setbacks, the Jaguars continue to try to run him out there as much as they could. And I don't think they want to be in that position again in 2024. If it comes down to it and they can get Mac Jones on the field healthy instead of a hobbled or injured Trevor Lawrence, I think that would be more ideal than the situation they had a year ago. But we'll see how that plays out throughout the preseason as well. So, individual drills, then you get a couple of positions working together, then you get into 7-on-7, and a lot of what we saw, really all of what we saw on Wednesday, was red zone oriented. The offense and the defense going at each other. And 7-on-7 opened with some fireworks because Trevor wasted no time looking for the rookie, Brian Thomas Jr., in the corner of the end zone, a perfectly thrown corner route to Thomas. Unfortunately, the rookie from LSU could not finish the play. And then a snap or so later, you had Tyson Campbell, the recent contract recipient, big money recipient. And look, you can talk about Tyson and you can talk about the lack of availability and the lack of consistency to this point in his career. But I think we all agree that there have been more than a few flashes to make you think this guy can be a high level NFL corner. And the Jags now are paying him Pro Bowl money. You don't typically see that, but it is very much a position of value, the cornerback position. So there is going to be a premium if you do, in fact, feel like a young player has that ability to reach a high level. And obviously, that's the case with Tyson, and also system fit. If you're looking at Tyson Campbell right now and thinking, Ryan Nielsen, the way he wants to play on the back end, he's perfect for us. We can't do better than Tyson Campbell in, say, free agency in terms of what we would have to pay as well. It makes sense to go ahead and get this deal done with Tyson Campbell. But again, position value, corner. You think about Josh Hines Allen, edge. You think about Trevor, quarterback. Those are three of the top 4 or 5 in positional value that you're going to find in the National Football League. And the Jags check those boxes with younger, cornerstone type players at those positions. But Tyson with a beautiful pass breakup early on in 7-on-7. I thought it was interesting in terms of the 5-man secondary that we saw from the outset of 7-on-7. You had Ronald Darby at a corner. You had Andrew Wingard at safety. You had Andre Cisco at a safety. You had Darnell Savage working in the slot, and then Tyson at the other corner. Antonio Johnson, I did see him working with the twos to go along with Daniel Thomas at the safety positions, in case you're wondering. But Travis Etienne early on in 7-on-7 with a nice touchdown catch, working against Foye Oluokun. You had a formation on one of the earlier plays, or a look anyway, on one of the earlier plays where you had Gabe Davis, you had Christian Kirk, and you had Brian Thomas and trips to the field. Trevor comes back to Evan Ingram working a crossing route the other way. That's the type of pressure you could be able to put on opposing defenses when you go with that type of look, especially with Evan out there. Jarrion Jones, if you're wondering about the rookie defensive back from Florida State, taken in the 2024 draft. Saw him with the twos at both the slot corner and at corner. Also saw Christian Braswell some at slot corner. He, in fact, had a nice pick against CJ Beathard in 7-on-7. Mac Jones did some good things, I thought. He was also intercepted in the practice, but Mac had a nice touchdown pass to Josh Cephas, who has drawn a lot of interest from some Jags fans here as sort of that underdog to make the roster, perhaps, at the wide receiver position. If you were wanting to see good stuff from Ronald Darby early on in his tenure as a Jacksonville Jaguar, you got that on Wednesday. Had a beautiful pick of Trevor Lawrence on an outcut by Gabe Davis, where Darby just broke on it perfectly in the red zone and was able to secure the takeaway. You also saw Gregory Jr. some at the star position, what I call the star position. It's the slot corner. I thought one of the backup inside linebackers showed well in 7-on-7. Caleb Johnson, been around the league for a little while, 3-4 years. Probably when you're thinking of a Caleb Johnson and his chances of making this roster, you probably don't like them all that much, but maybe as a special teamer. But he showed on Wednesday morning in 7-on-7 some good stuff in coverage. Had a pass breakup on a tough play. You get these inside linebackers matched up on backs in space, running the rail or running the wheel routes or things like that, running down the field and you're in man coverage. Caleb Johnson at the moment of truth with a beautiful play in coverage against Tank Bigsby. He also had, Caleb Johnson did, a pick of Mac Jones. So then the practice transitioned into 11-on-11. Interested to see what that defensive front was going to look like without Arik Armstead out there. What we saw to get things going as a starting point, anyway. Trayvon Walker on one edge. We had Josh Hines Allen at the other, and then Adam Gostis and Devon Hamilton working inside. So that was probably the biggest takeaway for me in 11-on-11. I wanted to see kind of more of what that defensive front was going to look like. And so that was the key takeaways for yours truly. A lot of what you wanted to see, you saw. A lot of what you didn't want to see, you saw. And when I say that, I'm talking about injuries. And we heard from Doug Peterson before the practice that rookie Keelan Robinson was dealing with a bit of a toe sprain. And I thought you could see some of that from Keelan. It was a little bit of a rough workout for the first year back and had a drop working against air with Trevor early in practice. And then there was another situation where they didn't hook up. Maybe Trevor could have given him a better ball. But then when they came together for 7-on-7 and 11-on-11, yeah, in retrospect, it made sense perhaps that it was a bit tough for Keelan Robinson because I'm not sure that toe was still feeling all that great. Doug said pre-practice that Keelan was limited, but it looked like he tried to give it a go in just about everything he could do during the workout. So there you go. There's yours truly's recap. And we're going to be back out there in the next couple of days. So we will keep you in tune right here on Reier on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, we would certainly encourage you to do so. If you would turn on those notifications, you'll get all of our content right here on Reier on YouTube as it drops. And if you don't mind, how about a thumbs up, a like for what we're doing here? That would help us out tremendously as well. Remember, Evan Reier going to be back with me in the next couple of days, and we'll continue to bring you the best we can of Jacksonville Jaguars talk right here on Reier on YouTube. Travis Reier, thanking you once again. And until next time, so long, everybody.